Hi friends, Mindy here. Welcome back to my channel and another Word Study Wednesday. I am once again using my Word Study journal from the James Method. I love this journal and I have actually ordered another one so that when I fill this one up, I have that one in reserve. But there are templates that you can get that work within the Bible Binder system that also have Word Study templates. And so if you prefer that option, that is available as well. I will put my affiliate link down in the description if you are interested in all of that. But let me get on to the most important part here. So I am looking at the word dwell today, and this is from Romans 8:11, which says, "But if the spirit of him that raised up Jesus from the dead dwell in you, he that raised up Christ from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by his spirit that dwelleth in you." And what you see me doing here, I wrote out my verse, and then I thought it was interesting that this word dwell was in this verse twice. And so I wanted to check the Strong's numbers for each of those words. And as it turns out, they are two different Strong numbers. So I am going to just kind of mark this secondary one that's dwelleth, which this is G1774. And I made a little note. And then the one I'm actually looking at is G3611. And so I just kind of drew a little arrow and marked that. And then I'm going to go ahead with the transliteration and writing the Strong's number, and we'll come back to those kind of rabbit trails here in a little bit. So this word is actually from the root of G3624, and it is a verb. It's a present tense verb, active, indicative, third person, and singular. And it means to occupy a house or reside, inhabit, remain. And the outline of biblical usage is really to dwell in. And so this word is actually used 9 times in the New Testament, and each of those times it's translated as dwell. So this word, is found everywhere from Romans to First Timothy, but the most times that it appears is actually in Romans. And I'm actually going to read a few of those verses today. So Romans 7:17 through 18 says, "Now then, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not." So he's talking here about that kind of warring in our life about, living after the spirit or living after the flesh. And in us dwells no good thing. And so we have to try to walk after the spirit and not walk after the flesh. And this is kind of that discourse where he's going back and saying, what I would not do, that's what I do, and going kind of back and forth. And in verse 20, he goes on to say, "Now if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me." So if I have the desire to do right and I do not do it, then I'm allowing sin to dwell in me. And we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to be living after the spirit and not after the flesh. So in the next chapter, in Romans 8, verse 9, it says, "But ye are not in the flesh, but in the spirit, if so be that the Spirit of God dwell in you. Now if any man have not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of his." So this having the Spirit within our lives is just something that's absolutely crucial. It's critical. It's what helps us get through these things as we are just kind of navigating this life. And so it's very important that the Spirit of God dwells in you. There's other places where it talks about dwelling in you richly. I'll get to that in a little bit. But 1 Corinthians 3:16 says, "Know ye not that ye are the temple and that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you." And I thought this was really interesting because we're talking about being the temple of God here, and habitation, and that same idea of a house or a building that the Spirit of God can dwell in. And we are to be clean vessels in order for that to be able to happen. And it's something to be mindful of as we walk this walk, that we are to be a temple that God can dwell in. So at this point, I want to look at that other dwell. This is G1774. I just wanted to include that here. And so I just have a little note that it means to inhabit or to dwell in. And then the verse that I'm writing down is Colossians 3:16. And it says, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. And so it's important that we have the word of Christ in us. I have said this before. There's a quote that says that you cannot impart what you do not possess, and so we can't share the word with others if we don't have it within us. And if it's not in us, it can't change us, and we can't we're not allowing it to do the work that it's meant to do in our lives. And so having these studies and whatever that looks like, however, you prefer to do studies, but just letting the word of Christ really just dwell in you and change you and make you over kind of in his image. It's just something that is really crucial. And so you can see here, I've switched over back to the other side. I now want to look at some of these root words that this 3611 where it comes from. And I want to show you quickly on the Blue Letter Bible app, there's this little section that says click for synonyms. And so it actually pulled up another couple of synonyms to look at. So this doesn't show up in every entry, but I wanted to point it out because it's here. And I will look at one of those in just a moment. But I want to go first to the root, which is 3624. Which means house or household, talking about like any building or any dwelling place. Also refers to the household, like a family, all the people that are dwelling in a home together. And that's all this G3624. So this is the root for G3611. And then I did want to include the synonym. So it gives the Strong's number of G3614. And I'm going to write that down too, which is literally, it's more of a literal translation here about a house, like a physical building. And an inhabited edifice is really what it says, or a home. So something that is, occupied by people as opposed to just being a building or kind of referring to a household. But I did want to include that since it did give the synonyms as well. So now I want to fill out the last little bit of information, which is the lexicon. You can see I have now moved over to the desktop version of the Blue Letter Bible. And I'm just going to type in my verse. Again, I'm going to click on tools where it says interlinear. And then I'm going to click on my word dwell. And then up at the top, there's a little bar up there that says lexicon. I'm going to click on that. Now, it's bringing up a bunch of words in the Hebrew as well as the Greek. I'm only writing down the Greek. And the reason for that is I have actually done a word study on the Hebrew word for dwell. And so I just only wanted to write down the lexicon for the Greek. And I did make a little bit of a note or, little line next to each of the ones where the kind of the root word is kind of shows up within those other words to come back to and look at. And then I've gone to the Matthew Henry commentary, and I read through that, and then there was a little bit of that I want to quote, and then most of it is just kind of my own thoughts as well. But so I am pulling some from the Matthew Henry commentary. It's my favorite. But what I wrote here for the main takeaway says, we must have his spirit dwelling in us. To quote Matthew Henry, he says, the same spirit that raised the soul will now raise the body shortly by his spirit in you. And so I wrote that we are temples or habitations of the Holy Spirit. And it's our duty to walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. That's verses 12 and 13. His Spirit dwelling in us enables us to mortify the deeds of the flesh, which is what we are called to do. If we're walking after the Spirit, we cannot be also walking after the flesh. We can't be actively sinning. Not to say that we don't mess up, and there is forgiveness. It says that, he's faithful and just to forgive us, but we can't just, assume that grace and forgiveness and all that's always going to be there and just live our lives however we want to. We have to literally, it says in that verse, mortify the deeds of the flesh. And so anyway, what you see me now, I'm just going to do a little bit of decoration here on my page. I'm going to add some stickers. These are just some old stickers that I have had in my stash. And I did want to highlight that one section with that other Strong's number just to kind of, delineate it from everything else. And then I'm going to come in with my Tombow marker and just add some color, nothing super fancy. And I added some more of this kind of faux washi stickers around. And I'm not going to make you watch me do that because you've seen, people put stickers down before. But I did want to just thank you for watching this video. I also want to mention that I do have other word study videos that are in a playlist. If you want to check those out, those will be down in the description. And if you have a word that you would like to see me do in future videos, let me know that too in the comments, or let me know what words you're studying. Maybe something will speak to me through that too. So I'd love to know kind of what you're currently studying and what words are speaking to you and through your time. So also, if you liked this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd love to have you join my Facebook group. Check out my website. All the links for everything are going to be down in the description. And until next time, bye.